that was enough. I think that was slow enough and clear, huh? Did you get it? Amen. Well, not sure what to talk about. Maybe it would be helpful for me to tell a little bit about what's going on in this war in Israel and what's happening, because we're so involved in it every day. And you don't really get everything that you need to on the news. So maybe we can talk about, Lord, just help me to communicate things that would be edifying and upbuilding for everyone here. Amen. And maybe we'll have some time for questions. Yeah. I have 4 children. They've all served in the Israeli army. All of the children in Israel serve in the army. My youngest son was in Gaza, right in the midst of fighting, was actually in one of the worst instances. They got hit, his unit got hit by RPGs. The building they were in collapse. They were shot at by the Hamas terrorists, and 13 people in his unit were wounded. And they had to, Israeli army has a policy, you never leave a wounded person. Never. You don't even leave a dead body. You have to clear them out. And so they had to clear them out, evacuate the wounded while they were getting shot at. It was really, it was a difficult incident. So that's what our people are there and facing in every day. So here's a little background. I want to start all the way back. People speak of Israel as being colonialists. Actually, it's kind of silly, because for most of modern history, the Middle East was colonialized by Turkey. Did you know that? The Turkish Empire, actually it was called the Ottoman Empire, ruled the Middle East for 400 years. 400 years, from 1517 to 1917. Very interesting. The date of 1517 was when sort of the Protestant Reformation started here, and there was a treaty between Muslims and Christians in Europe. But for 400 years, the Ottoman Turks, the Ottoman Muslims ruled the Middle East. So they were the ones who were the colonialist power here. 400 years. All of basically modern Middle Eastern history is Ottoman history. And then in 1916, the Islamic militants in Turkey, in the Ottoman Empire, launched a jihad against the Christians in Armenia. It was called the Armenian Genocide. But here's what I want to tell you. It was not Turks against Armenians. It's not what it was. It was Islamic jihad against Christians. It was Muslim terrorists against Christians. They moved in, they slaughtered over 1 million people, Christians, in Armenia. Among them, they took young girls, dedicated Christians, and said, here's your choice. Either you renounce Jesus, or we're going to crucify you. Naked. They crucified the Christian girls in Turkey naked on the streets on crosses. That's what jihad is all about. Amazingly enough, the next year, God judged it. That was 1916. The next year, the Ottoman Empire was destroyed. And then, in that year, was when Britain came in, and Britain basically took over the Middle East, and that's when you had the British mandate in the Middle East, of Palestine and Israel, in that area. So Israel was never in charge of it. At that time, there were, Jews and Arabs living in the area, and overrun by the British. At the end of that period, of course, the British wanted to leave. We made their life miserable for them, I assume, so they had to leave. But they turned it over. They proposed a 2-state solution. All of the Arab countries around said no, because they don't want a 2-state solution. They want to destroy Israel. They're not interested in a 2-state solution. That's not what they want. The idea that that's what the Arabs want or the Palestinians want is a 2-state solution is just not true. It's just a total lie. It's not what they want. And I'll try to explain why that is in a moment. And they went in, so there was a war because of that. That was the War of Independence, and Israel took more territory than was actually offered in the two-state solution. Actually, so then the history is, I want to make this quicker, but you come up all the way up into the year 2005. At that point, Ariel Sharon and a lot of the Jewish people said, look, we just want to we don't want this conflict anymore. There were 8,000 Jewish settlers inside Gaza. Beautiful homes, farms, wonderful thing. We decided to remove them all physically. They all didn't want to go. They had to be forcibly removed, dragged out by the police. By the Israeli police, went into Gaza, dragged these people out, bulldozed their homes, bulldozed the synagogues that were there in their homes. And at that point, and they left a little bit of their farming. They said, well, we'll leave the farming industry here for the Gazans to take over. The Gazans were so happy that the Jews left that they also destroyed the farm infrastructure that was there. At that time, there were some sort of election there, and Hamas took over. It was sort of, we turned it over to the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation, and then Hamas took over from them. The first thing Hamas did within 24 hours was murder all of the Palestinian, of the PLO leaders. They took them out and just shot them. Middle East politics, Islamic style, Islamic extremism. So they took over the nation, and since that point, they have been planning this war. Planning this war. Now, in all this time, they've been given billions of dollars, primarily from Iran, somewhat from Qatar. Qatar was only giving about $5 billion a year. So, but I'm saying there's big money that was pumped in here. This money was taken by Hamas and built the most complicated military infrastructure I think that has ever existed in the history of man. They have 200 kilometers of tunnels under the ground. And they're all military based, they're all weapon storage. In addition to that, they put weapons and military equipment in, I won't say every home in Gaza, but from what it seems like from our military, about every other apartment building had weapons in it. Every school, every kindergarten, every hospital, for certainly every UN humanitarian center was all run. The UN turned it over to Hamas. And then the Hamas ran it, so it all just became a cover for jihad. The biggest thing that happened, though, however, which you have to understand, was the educational aspect. This is something that I think most of the people in the West are not understanding. The biggest problem here was education. From that moment on, and from about 2007, when they took over, they began to educate, propagandize the infants. You know, from kindergarten level, they began to train them that the Jews are evil, and that what they have to do to serve Allah, to serve God, is to kill Jews and to liberate from Palestine, from the sea to the river. The sea to the river, you understand, is all of Israel. So when they say liberate from the sea to the river, what are they talking about? They're talking about killing all the Jews that live there. It's just not that's what it's all about. And this war, some people call it, in Israel call it the Gazan War. People talk about what the purpose is. Do you know that's not what they call it? The Hamas do not call this a war for Palestine. They don't call it a war for liberating Israel, Palestine, Gaza. They call it the El Aqsa Flood War. El Aqsa means the Temple Mount. He said this war was to conquer all of Israel and wipe out Israel and conquer the Temple Mount. That's what this war was. It had nothing. So all the talk in the media about Gazan rights and all this and it had nothing to do with what they were planning. The Hamas mentality is Islamic apocalyptic jihadism to bring the Majdi, to bring their Messiah to come. And that's why it's having to do with Jerusalem and not Mecca. Because their apocalyptic vision has to do with Jerusalem over the El Aqsa. area on the Temple Mount. And so that's what this was planning to do. This war was planned and prepared for all these years. 16 years they've been building stockpiles of weapons and putting the weapons in all the humanitarian centers, stealing all the money. At this point, for all these years also, they did not improve the Gazan humanitarian. They didn't build businesses. They didn't build any kind of civilian infrastructure because that's not their purpose. You understand, the purpose of Hamas is not to build a Palestinian state. It's to destroy Israel and bring a Gog and Magog type war to bring them aside. That's what they're about. They have no interest in building things. So they didn't. They took all the money and put it into this radical education and military infrastructure. That's why the Israeli government has been saying, if you want to know what we want after this war, we want just two things. We want it demilitarized and we want it de-radicalized. The problem is, first is the educational material, because they've grown up, all the people have been grown up, that's all they've heard, that's all they've been educated. Everything they've been educated in is the need to kill Jews, to wipe out Israel, and to take the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, I live in Jerusalem, I see all these things happening. Part of the propaganda is that Israel has taken over the Al-Aqsa Miskad, the mosque, and that we don't let Muslims worship there. It's ridiculous. Muslims are free to worship there. At the Eid al-Fitr, which is their big holiday, the biggest holiday, this past year there were 200,000 worshipers on the Temple Mount in one day. In one day. Try to figure out now, what does that mean? Of course, it wasn't 200,000 every day, but there's open worship in there. They can come up anytime they want to. It's totally free. All Israel does is to protect the security of the area so it won't start a war in that area. The people that Israel blocks from coming up are Israelis. They don't want Israelis to go up to start, so they block our people from going up on there. That's another part of the lie that was going on. Now, what seems to happen was, so they were planning this war. The war was to be a total invasion. This is what I've studied all the material. A total invasion led by Iran. And it was supposed to happen when Iran got their nuclear bomb. It wasn't supposed to happen yet. It was not supposed to happen in this year. Iran was, and they were planning a total attack from all sides, the Houthim and from Gaza and from the West Bank and from Hezbollah, to attack from everything with the cover of Iran with a nuclear weapon to tell all the European nations and the United States, don't get involved, because if you get involved, we're gonna release a nuclear bomb, and that would just allow all the people to come in and attack Israel covered under it, all to be on the same day and go forward. You with me so far? Am I giving you too much information? Now, what happened here is the people that are living on the strip, the Israeli side of Gaza, just along the strip there, are basically kibbutzim. Most of these kibbutzim are ultra-liberal, secular, leftist, and they live there hoping that we were going to have a good relationship with the Palestinians. People say we had a blockade on there. The blockade, first of all, was only to stop military weapons from coming in. The average day during the past few years was 23,000 people per day from Gaza crossed over into Israel to work in all these surrounding kibbutzim and the few cities that were there, like Sderot and so on, and Kfar Aza. That were there, and they came in. These were the best jobs that anybody had in Gaza, was coming over to work in Israel and then going back at night. That's actually why they had all the information of how to attack, because all these people just opened up their homes to them. They came in and they were working there, working in the agriculture, working in the homes, working. That's how they got to know it, because this was the vision of Israel, of at least this half of the people of Israel, was let's just be good to them. Whoops. All right. All right. My dear friend, the Cantors are coming over. So the idea was that we could live together in peace, and so we want to open their homes, and so that's what the hope of this was. Now, you have three types of Arabs that live in the general area of Israel. You have those who live in Gaza. You have those who live in what's called the West Bank, or what we would call Judea and Samaria. And then you have those in the main part of Israel, which have Israeli citizenship. The Arabs that live in Israel have full citizenship rights. They have as much voting rights as I do. We have Arabs on the Supreme Court. We have Arabs in the Knesset. We have Arabs and for most of the people in Israel, on a day-to-day basis, in the main part of Israel, Jews and Arabs get along great. My doctor is an Arab. You know, we get along wonderfully. In the summer, the Arab kids and the Jewish kids swim together in the same swimming pool. It's just we have a wonderful relationship. Arabs and Jews actually love one another. We would like to get along, but what happens is the radicalization propaganda causes our people to hate one another. Well, actually, it causes them to hate us. Arabs who've been radicalized by this Islamic extremism are taught to hate Jews. Jews don't hate Arabs. You know, we would like to get along. We can't figure out how right now. So when this war happened, so Hamas was not supposed to do this. They've been preparing this war for 16 years. During this, so they have 200 kilometers of tunnels. Can you imagine? 200 kilometers. You know how Gaza, it's 5 kilometers wide. How do they have 200 kilometers of tunnels? The place is booby-trapped and armed in the whole area there. They put that in there, and because they knew if they went to war, they wanted to go underground so they couldn't, so that Israel could not come back and attack them. Now, what happened was, at that week, at October 7th, or actually on October 6th, there was a rock festival. A really, not the kind of rock festival that any religious Jew or any devout Christian would want to go to. You know, drugs, sex, all night, Buddha images, just Eastern mysticism, doing all this kind of stuff all night long. And so they attacked in the morning when these people had been out dancing, getting high all night. 4,000 of the people that were there, and Hamas heard about this, and they said, this is too much of an opportunity for us to miss. Let's just go for it. Who cares what Hezbollah and Iran want? This is our chance. So they cut through the wall in the Israeli, and nobody was expecting anything like this to happen. That was our big mistake. It wasn't just that we weren't expecting this to happen militarily. We thought the concept was, well, we're sort of getting along. It's okay. You know, we have a decent relation. If they just have some money and some work, it'll be all right. We'll get along. But that kind of reasonability doesn't work with Islamic extremism. That's not how it happens. And so they crossed over the border, killed most of the people that were killed was from that rock festival, and the hostages were taken there, and mostly from these kibbutzim, who were the people that were opening their homes to them to come in and work there. And they came in, and the people were totally shocked. So the second thing, the surprise was not just that the military attack, not just that we weren't expecting the military, but the concept that we could have some sort of peaceful coexistence, that collapsed in one day. Which is, I think, for Israel, very painful. Because we don't want this war. We want to live at peace with our Arab brothers. We like them. We want happy. And so we realize, now, what are we going to do now? The concept collapsed. The concept collapsed that we could have some kind of peaceful existence with them. This is very, very shocking to us. Now, another thing to realize here is that the mentality of the Ayatollahs in Iran is different from the mentality of the Hezbollah, and different from the mentality of Hamas, although they're all Islamic extremists. Now, the people in Iran, they are Persians. They're not Arabs. Do you understand that? They're not Arabs. Persians, the mentality is, we are better. We're a higher race of people, and the Arabs are, secondary, lower level to us. So they see themselves as, overall this project, they see themselves in Iran as the leaders of this huge end-time Islamic jihad that's going to bring the Islamic Mahdi, the Islamic Messiah, to come in and wipe out Israel and bring the Islamic Garden of Eden on the earth. That's how they see it. And the Arabs are just, you know, they're going to do the dirty work for us. But Hamas sees it just the opposite. They say, no, 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 we're the front line. We are the elite fighters, and all of the rest of Islamic extremism is just going to back up, because this is the real fight, is to take over Israel, and we're the ones to do that. And so they thought when they invaded Israel, okay, it wasn't on the date that the Iranians wanted, but everybody's going to join in with us, and everybody's going to join this attack once they see that we've gone in and we've got this big victory in this first day. And what happened is nobody went in with them. You know, I mean, Hezbollah's got 150,000 ballistic missiles in there, and they've been shooting a few others over to make it, you know, make it look like they're support. They haven't gone into the war. They don't want that. And so Iran, you know, is making a lot of noise, and the Houthis are shooting a few missiles over, but not like they didn't have. This was not the end game. Apocalyptic war. This was not Armageddon, which is what Hamas wanted. They were shocked that everybody didn't join in with them. Now, so when that happened, so then we've been going back in. Now, the Israeli army is, I don't know what anybody hears, but I'm telling you, they are the most moral army in the world. They are super professional. They go in, they never hurt an innocent civilian. That's not what they do. They're trained not to do that. If an Israeli soldier shoots an innocent person, he will go to jail. Our own soldiers have been put in jail for shooting Arabs if it wasn't in a necessary situation. But they've gone in, and then we had another shock when we went in to do the war, was that we knew that they were using a lot of civilian facilities for what, but we were shocked at how much there was. I mean, every house, every hospital, everything was, and we were shocked at how much underground tunnels military infrastructure was. Now, what's the problem, of course? If you put missile launchers inside of a kindergarten, what is Israel supposed to do about that? Can we shoot back? We don't want to shoot back because we're a moral army. What do you do? So this is why the war has taken so long. If we had gone in, we could have gone in, you understand, and just bombed the place. We could have just gone in, bombed this where we knew the hospital was, where Sinwar was. We could have just bombed it the first day, but we didn't. We sent flyers. We said, we have to get out of the area. We gave them a protected route to get out. They moved in, and we're having to go house to house, one at a time, taking apart the military infrastructure. That's why it's taken so long. At the same time, the international community is saying to us, why is this taking so long? Why don't you finish up the war? And we're going, it's taking so long because we're not killing innocent citizens. That's why it's taking so long. You know, so Israel is stunned at the bizarre reverse propaganda that's going out. It's like, it's crazy. Everything that's being said is the exact opposite of the truth. It's just, it's weird. And of course we have the problem of the hostages. Now they've been moving the hostages. As Israel's army is advancing and getting to more and more tunnels and getting to them, we're moving them out. Actually, they're moving toward the south, but they're pulling our hostages with them. It seems to us pretty sure that they've got the hostages surrounding where Sinwar is, so that we can't bomb it, we can't shoot it. But we're moving, and each time we go down, we say, oh, here's a place. We can see evidence the hostages were there. Let's keep going. They're fleeing, and they're moving out. So we're just going on and on and on to get down to get to them and finish it. Now, as I said in that little short video, believe me, Israel does not want a war. We don't want this war. We didn't start the war. But we have no choice. We have no choice because we have hostages there. We cannot leave hostages in the hands of Hamas. We have to get them back. And Hamas is not just going to give us a fair deal and give us that's not going to happen. Now here's what happens. If there's an extended ceasefire without all the hostages coming back, That means they will use that time to regroup and come back into the tunnels where we took 4 months to get them out of, and go back, and then we'll have the war have to go all over again and have a huge. We can't do that. And so, or if they could give all the hostages back, we would say, okay, let's do that. In addition to this, we have another problem. Because they were shooting missiles into the, what we call Otef Aza, the town surrounding Gaza, the Gaza envelope, all of the people in all of those towns have been evacuated. All of them. 120,000 people in these 8 or 9 towns that are there. They've been all evacuated. Where are they supposed to go? We want them to go back. All those places have been bombed, but we want to go back and start rebuilding it. They can't go back there if Hamas still has missiles, because they'll go back and they'll shoot missiles over at them again. So do you see? So we have no choice but to get to all of the missile storages. There's no way that's going to happen unless we do that. So we have to remove Hamas, take away their weapons, and oversee the territory so there won't be a radicalization so that the thing just starts to rebuild. Are you with me? Now, what also happened is Hezbollah in the north also shot rockets into the northern border. So the northern borders there, and they also have small kibbutzim. Again, mostly left-wing secular kibbutzes are on the border of Lebanon there. They shot missiles. They've all been evacuated. 80,000 people from the northern border. We have 200,000 people that have been evacuated from their homes. How can we bring them back in? We can't bring them back in unless we stop the missiles from coming in. We can't put them back in their homes and have the missiles come back over, then have them evacuated again. You can't do that. You see the moral dilemma that Israel's in. Now, there was a war in Lebanon in the year 2000. At the peace treaty that came out of that war, the peace treaty was that all of the militant forces had to stay north of the Litani River. That was the UN Resolution 1701. They had to stay north of the Litani River, which wouldn't stop big missiles from coming in, but it would stop them so you couldn't come over and shoot a shoulder-held RPG into a village. It creates a little bit of a buffer zone. And what happens, and the UN was supposed to be guarding that area. So, of course, when it was turned over to the UN, it took about a week before all the terrorists just started coming back in and rearming the whole area in southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, which was against the UN resolution of the ceasefire. So now what are we going to do? Well, we can just say, well, we won't move any of our people back in, and we'll just give that to them. And then they'll move more bigger missiles in, and they'll shoot bigger missiles in, and we'll move our people south. You see, we can't do that. We have to put our people back in, which means we have to remove, that's a tactical issue. How much we know we have to at least get them back out of over the Litani River, so we won't have a short-term. It's at least have them make them fire long-term missiles, which would be a different military situation. So we want to be able to put our people back in their homes. How are we going to be able to do that? Now, so this is the war that we're facing right now. And, as I said in this little thing, the charter of Hamas is to wipe out Israel. They're not hiding that fact. The Western media is hiding that fact. Hamas is not hiding that fact. They openly proclaim it. That's what they want to do. That's the name of this war. That's their goals. It's everything. We, in the West, we're trying to pretend that that's not really what they're trying to do. And that's not what they're saying. They're saying, yes, we want to wipe them out. There's no doubt about it. That's what they want. Now, you also have to understand that these are Islamic extremists. There's different types of Islamic extremists, and they don't necessarily get along with one another, the Shiites and the Sunnis and so on. And those are Arabs, those are non-Arabs. But on the other hand, all of the Islamic jihadist type extremists, which are all around, which includes Al-Qaeda, which includes ISIS, which includes Hezbollah, which includes the Ayatollahs, which includes the Hamas, which includes Boko Haram in Africa, which includes the Houthim in Yemen, they all have the same idea. You need to understand, they're not for national liberation. That's not what they're there for. Hezbollah is not for Lebanon. They're for an Islamic state. not a Lebanese state. Do you understand that? That's what the word means. ISIS, Iraq and Syrian Islamic State. They're not for Iraq. They're not for Syria. They're for having an Islamic state that takes over Iraq and Syria. That's what's going on. That's what's in all of the groups are. And they're not interested in any kind of logical, what we would call Western type humanitarian, a logical, moral response. That's not what they believe. They're serving God to come out and wipe out the people of Israel and then take over the El Aqsa and bring their Messiah, the Mahdi, to come. That's what they're all about. And they want to make the world an Islamic state. They want to make the world like Iran. That's what they're out to do. Now we can say, no, that's not really what they're about. They're about the rights, and it's about a blockade, and we don't have voting. That's not what they're saying. You know? So that's what the fight is against. Now, a couple other comments, and I'll open for questions. I've been amazed how much good things have happened in Israel since this war started. I think more good has happened in Israel spiritually in these 3 months than the over 33 years that I've been serving there. The country is having a revival. The country's having a revival. Now, it's not to Jesus, but it's to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's reading the Bible, at least the Old Testament. The people are walking around the streets reading the Psalms. Secular news broadcasters are saying, well, we need to pray about this. And I mean, it's amazing. Everybody said, most of the country has moved toward unity. Even the ultra-Orthodox that were refusing to serve in the Israeli army are now volunteering to come and serve in the army. A lot of the collapse of some of the ultra left wing has been reduced. Even some of the ultra right wing religious in Israel have been modified to realize, hey, we have to serve the whole country, and the whole, and particularly the young people. I saw this with my son. You realize that all Israeli boys and girls go into the army at age 18. Boys for 3 years, girls for 2 years. You know, you're talking about teenage girls. You have 18-year-old teenage girls, right? You know what an 18 teenage girl is? You know, with a Western mentality. TikTok, you know, dancing. That's where they're at. They're 18-year-olds learning how to dance in front of the TikTok, and they're going into the army. Put a uniform on them, strap a rifle on their gun, send them in there, you know. And this generation has been transformed in 1 month. I've never seen anything like this in my life. It's so beautiful. From an idiot XYZ generation to becoming young people that are taking responsibility, willing to give their lives, saying we have to protect God's plan in the Bible for Israel. And they say this, young people, saying we are fighting the evil that is threatening the whole world, and the world doesn't know it, and the world is attacking us while we're fighting to protect the whole world, and we're doing this for them, and we're going to do it. 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. It's been just a beautiful thing to see. I watch my son mature in a month, you know. Watching just our country is being transformed. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. I'm saying, but it's been a huge shifting in our people. And I believe, you know, I've been serving the Lord almost 50 years. So I've been living under all Israel will be saved for my whole adult life. Frankly, I didn't really see how it was going to happen. Now it's like it's obvious. The whole country is turning to God, not to Jesus, but it's turning to God, and it's having to go one more step in. It's just there that God is moving our whole country. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And there's even been a change a little bit. This is incredible. A little bit of change toward Jesus. Not believing in him, but it's the first time there was all this Christmas was in this war. And there was all this propaganda against Israel that Jesus was a Palestinian, Jesus was against Israel. People started saying, wait a minute, no, Jesus is a Jew. And the fact that he's Jewish is part of our propaganda to stop the anti-Israel propaganda. Let's start telling everybody that Jesus is Jewish. And we're going, oh, come on. It's like beautiful. We've been trying to tell you this for 30 years, and it's Hamas did us a big favor. You know what I'm saying? So now that all Israel is starting to reclaim the Jewishness of Jesus. Now, not believing him as Messiah yet, but that's the step to go in, Secular Israeli leftist, atheist, pro-homosexual news are doing things talking about Jesus being a Jew. It's just God is doing a wonderful thing. And we are in a war, and that's a whole nother teaching. I won't get into that, but it's my last statement I want to say is, our people are realizing that we have to fight this war. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Most of the people leading the fighting, the largest number are reservists. That means you're talking about older people. They've been out of the army for 10 years. They have young business. They have small businesses. They have young children. They're married. They have families. Those are the people that are going in now, and they haven't been back home for over 3 months. Amazing. But the thing is that there is a war in this world between good and evil, and we have to fight the war. And Israel is understanding that. I don't think yet that the Christian community has understood that. You can't be nice to evil. Evil has to be stopped. Evil has to be stopped. In the whole Bible, I don't want to get into another message, but the theology of war, the whole Bible is about war. The Old Testament is about war on the ground. The New Testament is about war in the heavenlies. There's two wars that go together. But our people have to fight, and we have to fight together. And I said that was the last thing. Oh, one last thing. Is that more and more that our people are seeing, like when they get to the UN, that everybody's against us. Except in every nation, there's this group of crazy people that call themselves evangelical Christians. And they come in with Israeli flags. And they love us. And we don't know why. That testimony is coming in and into our nation. Unbelievable. God is getting our people ready for the revival that will bring Yeshua back. And it's going to go through hell to get there. But Jesus warned us about that. It's not going to come through in an easy way. I think I'll stop there. Lord, we just thank you for giving us discernment and wisdom and understanding truth and facts in the midst of a world that has just gone crazy morally, gone crazy in information services and propaganda. And we thank you, God. But the truth will always win out over the lies. The light will always win out over the darkness. Hallelujah. Thank you, Father. Amen. Let's take a few questions. Huh? Okay, 5 minutes. Gives us time for 3 questions. Anybody got a question? Yes, sir.
What is the state of Hamas at the moment? How close are they to being done?
I think they started with 24 what they call chativot, which is divisions. I think we've taken out 21 of them. So they're down to their last 3 divisions, and they're moving north. Now, the last 3 ones are the ones surrounding Sinwar, so that's their elite of their elite fighters. And it's tough, and they're blocked into the best part of their tunnel system and on. So it's a dirty fight. So quantitatively, I think we've taken out 85% of their military ability, but the last 15% is the toughest nut to crack. But they're losing. And that's also the difference, is that our style, Israeli military style speech, is to understate. Well, we're just fighting, we're just doing our job. The style of Islamic extremism is to overstate. 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
Mark, would you? Oh. Thank you for this. This is amazing. I really appreciate everything that you've said. I learned a ton today. So first of all, thank you. But I do have a question. I receive all of that but then I asked, and then I asked the question of afterwards and what we should pray for. And with that in mind, for my question, is is there enough land right now for the Palestinians in Gaza and in Gaza and in general to, whether or not it's a country, is there enough room for the population there to live and to thrive if they were to have a peaceful government in the regions that they're in right now? And if not, what would be the solution?
Okay. I would say this, look, what's going to happen after the war? We don't know until the war. We don't know if the war will end. Because if we get forced into making a ceasefire, there won't be an end. Netanyahu has been very clear. We want two things, as I said, demilitarize and de-radicalize, that's all. And then there has to be some sort of coalition to rebuild. That's what we want. Could they prosper? If there was a peaceful government there, are you kidding? Do you know how much the property in Tel Aviv is worth? I mean, it's worth $1,000 for that amount of space right there. You're talking about Mediterranean seashore. You're talking about Riviera material. The country, Gaza ought to be the wealthiest. They ought to be Monaco. They ought to be the French Riviera. It's no reason. It's crazy. It's crazy for it not to happen. And what happens is, and part of the irony of this, that one people that really, really want them to prosper is us. We love them to prosper. And if they were really to prosper, and if we really love them, and if we really wanted them to prosper, we would totally take over the country and run the country to them until we could turn it over. But we don't love them that much, and nobody really wants them to prosper that much. But they could. They could if it's possible, for sure. And there's room there for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I also want to say, as we're looking at one last question, is that I don't have a political approach. I don't look at this left wing, right wing, one state, two state, I'm looking for the kingdom of God to come. I'm not for one particular political figure. At last Israel election, I got into to vote, and I said, God, I don't even know who to vote for. It's crazy. But we want righteousness. We want righteousness and justice, and we want God's will to be put in. So what I'm trying to tell you here is I'm not pushing any political agenda. I'm just trying to tell you what the facts are of what to deal with, to know how to pray. Yes, sir. Last question.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the information, what you shared. In how much, when we look at Gaza right now, how much authority right now does the UNRWA has? And how will that look like if and when
How much authority does the UN have?
No, the
Gaza?
UNRWA, the Palestinian Refugee Organization, and how will that look after Hamas is defeated? And how can we look to a change? Because most of the UN is, infiltrated by Hamas. So how do we see that change happen after Hamas is defeated? To see
it's incorrect to say that Hamas has infiltrated the UNRWA. They have totally taken it over. Right. There is no UN there. There is no UNRWA. It's a cover. It's a mask for Hamas. The UN came in and they turned it over to them. And the reporters that are there are Hamas. The people that are reporting there. It was just taken over. It's nothing. The UN gave up every bit of peacekeeping ability in Gaza and in Lebanon and just closed their eyes and let the Islamic terrorists take over all of the material, all of the weapons, all of the educational materials, everything that's there. Crazy. Crazy. What can I tell you? And just to give you a last little perspective here, let's not forget, I went back to start with the Islamic Jihad from the Ottoman Empire to the Christians in Armenia to tell you two things. This is a battle against Christians and Jews. Don't think it's not against you. If they kill the Jews, they're going to come after you. It's the Jews and the Christians are the people that are. But they don't believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They believe in the God of Allah and Ishmael. They want to fight that. And when you look at the other Islamic jihadism, can I explain this, Lord? Give me 1 sentence, real quick. The Islamic Jihad is first to take over the Arabic world. When they go into a territory, they kill Arabs. They slaughter Arabs. In the whole Arab Spring, which was Islamic jihadism taking over Iraq and Syria and all these countries, there was like 800,000 people murdered, 10 million people put into refugees. It was a slaughter, and Israel had nothing to do with it. Folks, they got to wake up. This is not about Israel. It's not about colonialism. It's not about rights. It's about Islamic jihadism that murders people, its own people first, to cause an Islamic state and put them under their control and spread an Islamic state over the world. And it's true for the Netherlands, and it's true for the United States. In any city where you get, that's what they believe in. That's what Islamic extremists believe in, is an Islamic Sharia state takeover, period. No exceptions, no ifs, ands, or buts. And anybody that tells you anything else is totally lying to you. That's the end of the session. Bye-bye.